That's right. Let's talk call-in radio. This is,
KWMR.
We'd like to say that we're always getting to the root of,
I was wondering where all those
of
script
topics
things
and problems.
were.
And there you go.
All right.
Pass these guys out.
Excellent.
Listeners are being privy to the
Inner
on-air
workings.
Or non-workings of this.
This is Let's Talk Radical Radio, getting to the root causes, as you said, of the important issues of the day. This on-air community forum believes your voice matters and welcomes all thoughts and views without judgment. Please join today's conversation by calling 415-663-8492 or tweet us at Let's Talk on KWMR. And the topic today is cyclists. Is it more specific than cyclists, or is it just cyclists?
Cyclists in general, but cyclists certainly in West Marin, and mainly it's really about the cycling groups, the groups that are now
Well, do I
coming
need to
West Marin.
read this little thing?
Well, this is...
Your hosts today are Paul Raffel,
Yes.
Charles Schultz, and guest Amanda Eichstead sitting in on Let's Talk today. The call-in number to call is 415-663-8492. That will put you into the queue. You'll hear the phone ringing. Please hang on when you hear Paul say, "You're on the air. Please give your first name, turn down your radio, and please do not use foul language of any kind."
Please watch your language. We are suffering from bad language at this station.
So I was intrigued. I was inspired by your topic to write in the Roundup about bicycling. Did you read my
I did.
Roundup
That was
article?
very good of you to write that.
I enjoyed the picture as well.
Yeah, it was a good picture.
So tell us about this.
So this came to be because actually Sally, my friend Sally,
Hello, Sally.
she's on a sort of local feed. What's it called? What is it called? Nextdoor.com for San Anselmo, and somebody wrote about their experience, which I also had, of riding through. After Platform Bridge, going through Samuel Taylor Park to Lagunitas and being stuck behind 20, she thought it was 25 people, 25 plus group of cyclists in tightly spaced, 3 deep, with cars behind them, not pulling over on this very windy road through Samuel Taylor. She honked. You're not supposed to honk. That's against the law to honk if it's non-emergency situation, although everyone does. She used to ride in California AIDS rides and other big rides that were properly organized, and these guys were just being obnoxious and looking back at the cars and just paying absolutely no attention to them. So that got me thinking, because I had the same experience.
Well, I've had the
3
same.
times now.
I've had the same experience myself. In fact, I've been on a tandem ride with my husband and been enveloped by such a group, because there are several organized rides that take to the roads of West Marin, have large groups of people. They're very popular for people who like to ride in those types of groups. And there aren't a lot of places where people can do that safely, and if you enjoy that type of riding, which I personally do not care for. I remember being in that ride and saying, let's just slow down and let them all go.
Well, hold on. Because
on the bicycle, because we're on a bicycle, and I just didn't want to be associated, and I didn't want to be in that group, because I thought, well, we'll just crash into one another, and there'll be a pile up like you see in the Tour de France, and like bike parts and body parts and
Well, this is the thing, right? They all think they're the peloton, right? They're riding in this big block, and everyone just needs to.
But there's an attraction to that, and that is sort of, it's an adrenaline thing, and it's a sport, Unfortunately and fortunately, we are allowed to ride our bicycles on the public right-of-ways, and that is, bicycles are vehicles, and and so it's like you can get that same adrenaline rush, I think, with rugby or soccer or some of these other sports.
Gardening.
But you do that in a field, and you go and you run around and kick things, and you're not in the road. But this is like, go play in the road.
When you have a lot of experience with this, right? I mean, your credentials here.
I have credentials.
Yeah. So, because giving the perspective from within the bicycle community, which me and Paul, we dropped out years ago, and so don't.
I gave up my bike when I was 17, I guess.
Anyway.
Well, the whole concept is, from a transportation perspective, it is great. I mean, it's a great way to get around. It's a it's a very civilized pace of moving yourself around the world. If you're riding your bicycle, you experience things in a very different way, and that could be beautiful flowers in a field to, multi-semis at intersections. I mean, you're putting yourself in there. But there are some skills that you can have to, take to the roads and reduce the likelihood of having a problem by being predictable and following the rules and being visible and having high conspicuity, which means that you're not only seen, but you're recognized for what you are quickly. So those like yellow vests or like the flashing lights, it's like, oh, I see something. It's not a deer. It's, once I was I was driving a vehicle and I saw this red flashing light. Actually, I think I was on my bicycle and there was a red flashing light ahead of me, and I assumed because it was in the bike path that it was on a bicycle. Well, it was not. It was on a dog. And the runner who was running with the dog had no visibility at all. And all of a sudden, the red flashing light went into the bushes because the dog was... And I almost hit the jogger. So, I mean, it's like, that's the thing is you want to be seen early. Right. You want to be seen when you go in and out of the shadows. You want to be known for what you are. And you want to be... I'm the person that you pass all the time and you do not remember.
Right. And isn't this part of the group thing and part of the militant bikers deals in San Francisco where they do it every Friday, critical mass, because of all the dangers that they face as single riders. They get together in a group and they basically say, this is our road, get out of the road.
Well, there is a great story about that.
Is that part of it?
I think that's a different kind of group ride than what you were discussing at the beginning, because, I mean, there's like people,
but isn't that part of the fascination with the group ride out here? They're safer in safety in numbers?
I think you're talking about two very, very different things. And I just want to give out the phone number in case anyone else wants to join the conversation. 415-663-8492. I mean, critical mass is sort of more of an activism to make statement about being a cyclist, and particularly in a city. You don't really see a lot of critical mass happening in the middle of, farmland. It's not happening.
That's not that kind of critical mass.
No, not that kind of critical mass. But biomass, maybe.
Exactly.
But the issue is more here is just, it's sort of like, it is kind of like the Peloton thing. It's like riding, like you watch these sports, you watch these races, they're all riding together. There's a group, and you draft. Drafting is a really great thing. Like the picture that you saw, I was out on a ride, and I ran into my tall friend Mike, and he was riding back, and so I turned around because I thought I can jump on his wheel, and then I don't have to ride into the wind, and I can keep up with somebody much faster than me because I'm riding in his draft. And those groups can really, they take turns being in the front, and it's it's a different way of riding. And I've been in those types of group rides, and I actually considered, I was on a tandem in a very fast group ride down outside of Palo Alto, and it was supposed to be a mellow ride, and then these two fellows showed up who were past Olympic tandem cyclists, like racers, and the pace just got so fast, and we were right in this group, and I actually considered just like unclipping and falling off, and that would be preferable to the fear that I was experiencing on the back of the bike. But that kind of adrenaline thing is not for me, and I don't ride like that. But
what do you think of cyclists? 663-8492. I have to say, Paul Fenn, co-host on the local Oregon On tomorrow at 1 p.m. with our guest Walter Ben Michaels. Plug. He led critical mass from Berkeley over the Bay Bridge. By the time they actually got onto the bridge, there were only 6 people left in their little "we're going to ride the Bay Bridge" thing. They were all arrested, but they had an activist judge who threw out all the charges. The scene in the courtroom was something like that. Like, Mr. Fenn, did you see a sign saying no bicycles on the bridge? Said, no, Your Honor, I did not. And the judge yelled at the arresting officer, said, Mr. Fenn says he didn't see a sign. Case dismissed. So there you go. But yeah, different thing. What do you think of cycling?
Different thing, exactly. Well, cycling, a wonderful thing, of course. It's healthy. It's lovely. It's great transportation.
I like to ride to work. I don't every day, but it's
bicycles as transportation throughout the world. People use them as transportation, as trucks. I mean, they're carrying huge loads on bicycles. Wonderful. But this is recreational. Look how, a bunch of real toned up boys, and they're
I get just as annoyed by this sort of like.
Well, this is the thing. Does it give all cyclists a bad name?
That's what I'd like to know, and I'd like for people to call in, because I had a run-in with a fellow who lives out here who thought that I should not be in the middle of the lane going across the Green Bridge. And it was a way for me to be safe, because if I ride really close to the side of the green bridge,
There's a curb. Right?
and then this gentleman was to go around me with his large American car, and then somebody were coming the other way, guess what? He's going to move over and crush me against the side of the bridge. And if I just ride in the middle of the lane across the green bridge, and then I go back to being in a safe space to the on the right-hand side of the lane where you can go around me very easily.
It's a 50-foot bridge, for God's
It's
sake.
a short
you're
bridge,
not
but
going very fast.
we had words, and
Ew.
honestly, I hardly ever have any problems riding. Very rarely, but it's these folks who they're all incited, and they just blanket everybody. And what I said in my Roundup article was, after running a bed and breakfast for 12 years, and I did the math with our occupancy percentage, over 1,200 guests, during that time period. And really, there were probably 5 that were really, memorable in not a good way.
Right.
But
Do you have names?
Yeah.
And what if I approached every new person who came to my business with the expectation that they were going to be like these 5 people that were really annoying?
Yeah.
That is not an okay way to go about it. And I, as a cyclist, take a real issue with this, all cyclists are fill in the blank,
Right.
or all talk host radio show
awful.
people are all the same, or anything. It's really, because if you think about all of the cyclists that you passed, we drove on a weekend, and there were so many people out on the roads.
Yeah. Well, there's so many people out there, period.
There's a lot of people out, but, we got from here to Fairfax, it was no problem. We passed cyclists. They were fine. We were fine. We were in a vehicle.
But you've been trapped on St. Francis Drake and quite unhappy about it.
I was quite unhappy about it.
Yes.
Yes, so it's been 3 times that I've been caught behind one
But
of
how
these
much did it
Wednesday
really?
groups.
It's the
Because
Wednesday thing, yeah.
it's
Okay.
where
What is the Wednesday thing?
They leave,
It's
apparently
this-
they leave Java Hut in Fairfax, right? And they
Yeah.
head out along through Samuel Taylor out to here, and, great. But
Don't these people have
they're
homes?
Well, they don't. Obviously, they're doctors. It's Wednesday morning, you know what. They're in this big group,
It's a big group.
and and you get into the windy and the hilly bits, and there's this big group doing 3 miles an hour, and I'm trying to get here for the radio show. If I were late for the show, it would be a
Scandal.
terrible thing for humanity. So, I've got a life to lead, and so did the sewage truck who was in front of me, between me and the cyclist. He had a life to lead, and the 5 people behind me also had lives to lead, yet here is this bunch of, really buffed guys.
That's the Divine Electric ride, and actually I've
Divine Electric ride.
It's they're kitted out. They basically lead that ride, although there are people who aren't part of their club. And I've gone to their website. It's an electric company that, and people have. I've actually tried to get somebody to come on my show to talk about this issue, because there was a real uprising of sort of anger in the community about this Wednesday morning ride, and I know that people have contacted the sheriff about it, and it's. It's a thing.
Well, what about all the difficulty mostly on the other side of the hill? I imagine it exists out here too with mountain biking, because that's been a big thing too about the trails and the mountain
That's
bikers are
kind
angry.
of that's
something else.
That's a whole nother topic in a sense,
Yeah.
because those are it's a share. It's sharing the
Sharing the trail
the trails thing. It's a pedestrian. It's a bicycle. It's a
For example, this is a website, I forget who it is, but it gives a list of group bike rides throughout Marin and San Francisco, and there's the photo. And this looks like a West Marin road with with riders 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 deep on the road. On a
5 abreast, you mean?
5 abreast.
I would hope that somebody who goes on those rides would call up, because I don't go
Please
on those
do.
rides. 415-663-8492. Tell us why this is such a amazing and wonderful thing that you're doing. I'm Amanda. I'm the station manager here. I'm also a cyclist, and I'm joining these fine fellows today.
It's because it's for fitness, basically. They're not looking at the scenery, right? They're looking at each other's behinds in their lycra.
Oh my.
They're looking at each other's wheels, making sure they're not going
Hopefully.
to bump into each other. They're not looking at the scenery, so why here? I don't know. Is it because there's hills and things?
We
Is
could
it
get them
because it's
stationary
narrow?
bikes.
Is it
Stationary bikes. We could just get them stationary bikes.
Why
and put
not?
them in,
I've
put
got
them,
one.
Exactly. Put it in the back of the place in Fairfax where they meet, and maybe put a screen in front of them with some
They
train
can all
going
drink
up.
coffee and have their Cliff Bars and throw the wrappers on the side of the road like
there
they
are
do.
people who do that. Those are all those like Soul Cycle and those spin classes, and they all go in the dark and like have people yell
In
at
the
them,
dark?
and and they play
Really?
music. And I've never
sounds
done
great.
it. I mean, it's just like, to me, that's like going into a gym to do workouts when you can go out on a hike or go on a
Fresh
run
air.
or something. Yeah,
But,
fresh air.
but you do. I mean, there's a distinction. You're right. You sometimes ride your bike from where you live to where you work. I mean, that's a bike as transportation. This is bike as like entertainment, is what you're saying. It's
Well,
a
I think,
sport.
yeah, I do that too. I mean, I'd love to go for a ride, but I prefer to ride where there
You're
are
by yourself.
fewer vehicles. And I crashed my bike about a year ago. I believe it was a solo fall. I don't think that I was hit and run, although somebody had insinuated that was a possibility. I don't remember because I had such a terrible head injury. But it's dangerous to crash your bike. But actually, the highest percentage of bicycle incidences are solo crashes. People losing control of their bicycle, or doing something foolish, or getting something caught in their spokes, or I know a guy who crashed his bike because a squirrel went in his wheel.
Really? I went over the
Suicidal
handlebars.
squirrels.
I went over the handlebars the day before, like, freshman year of high school. So I started freshman year with this huge scars and scabs all over my face. Really great.
There's a leopard.
But I think that statistically, bicycling is actually a pretty safe thing to do, and it's the health benefits outweigh. I think it's more dangerous for me to prune my apple trees, being on a ladder with a sharp implement, no helmet. Usually it's slightly wet. You could much more easily have an injury doing that than riding on a state highway with good sight lines.
But this, since they're thrill seekers, right? They want it. Maybe we could encourage like adventure pruning, sport pruning. So if they're looking
Speed
for
pruning.
if you're looking for danger in your life, you can go to Amanda's backyard. She has the ladder, the sharp implement. She'll wet things down before you get there, so it'll be slippery.
Yeah.
And you could get your kicks that way and do something productive. So there you go.
There you go.
Why don't you give us a call, 415-663-8492 or 8317.
I really
please
thought
do
people,
call in.
I really thought people would be all over this because, you see this stuff go out on the West Marin feed or on a Facebook post, and just the vitriol that comes, I mean, the sheer, hatred and anger of this. And that's one of the
On
things.
both sides, right?
On both sides, but also I think, it's difficult. I know those of us who are cyclists get just as bummed out by people being irresponsible on the roadways as cyclists, because it's one of the things psychologically that I found to be helpful, and sometimes I'm on the back of a tandem so I have more leeway, is to turn around and look at the driver. And in the face, and the behavior changes dramatically when they're not just looking at your ass, they're looking at your face, because they're looking at the back of you a lot of the time. And it's very impersonal. All of a sudden, it just, instead of being like, oh, there's somebody's father, a father of children riding his bicycle for exercise, it's like a damn cyclist, and it becomes less of like this is another human being than this is, something that's in my way. And honestly, if your situation of being stuck behind a ride for an extended period of time is unique, and that is a difficult situation for people to handle, and I'm sure that Doug Pittman would have some things to say about it, too.
Yeah, well, exactly. What could be done? What
could be done?
regulations could be enforced? Or,
there was a ride on the peninsula that was called the Noon Ride, and it would go out through the Woodside area from the Stanford campus area all the way out around Woodside, and same sort of similar heavily populated area. This is how you get out to a place where you can ride, and that ride was definitely, they were stopped at times because they weren't stopping at the stop signs. They weren't following the rules of the road. Right.
Well, and to that point, some of the comments on this San Anselmo thing are pretty interesting on both sides. There's one person who said she was an organizer of one of the AIDS rides, and if the people in the AIDS ride do not obey laws like that, like stopping. In fact, they require that you put a foot on the ground at a stop sign, which is not required by law. But
yeah, it's dumb.
But they're saying, if you impede traffic, you're out of the ride. They just throw you out of the ride. On the other side, there's a guy who is an avid roadie, they call them. I guess they call them roadies.
Call them roadies, yeah.
Is that right?
People who
Used
ride
to mean
road
something
bikes.
else in my day. I don't know. I'm a roadie.
Following
really?
the band.
Got any drink with me? He says that the law states that cyclists must be as far to the right as possible, as practicable, depending on the side of the road and everywhere. And he interprets that as meaning I can ride two abreast, right? And my friend is as far as practicable is over to the white line, and I am as far as practicable over to the right as well, right alongside him, because I cannot go any further to the right because I'm alongside him. That's how they're interpreting the law. I'm guessing that this 5 abreast thing, they're all saying, well, I'm as far to the right as I can get in this group.
That's interesting.
What do you think?
I don't know.
Call up 1-866-38492. Come on now, people.
We just need a call.
You know you're angry. You know you cyclists out there are really angry about motorists in general, and motorists in general are angry at bike groups in general.
There's all this style stuff too, right? I think it's became very popular with Lance Armstrong. I see these people, and they have like these.
My hero.
Well, they have these outfits on like they have a sponsor. It's like, the Postal Service is sponsoring you, Steve. Yeah, definitely. It's like a weird kind of like dress up.
Well, every sport has their thing. Their gear. If you think about it, all right. Professional. These guys wearing these 49ers jerseys, they're not playing professional football. They're fans, right?
But they are dorks.
Well, if that's your perception, but everybody has their own thing. I think that I tend to go with fewer logos, although I am happy to wear my Black Mountain Cycles
our downtown,
It's called
downtown
a kit.
bicycle store.
You have matching shorts and a jersey.
One of our fine sponsors, I might add.
It's a kit. It's called a kit. And so, but you could go and but I think it's funny when you see these people with sort of like the King of the Mountain jersey and or a yellow Tour de France.
Yellow Tour de France.
Pirelli tires. It's like, okay.
Well, and some of that stuff is traditional, and some of those are sort of classics, like from a long time ago. Ooh, I think we're getting a phone call. Some of those are classic outfits from days gone by. Oh, no, you have to answer.
It's a telegram. It's
you
Morse
have to
code.
answer the red phone.
Richard, come up. We're getting Morse code here.
So, but I think that also that you could say that about triathlon sport. You could say it about running, trail running. You could say it about all of these different things. So, yeah.
Yep. Well, I don't know. But the dress up aspect is funny, is unusual to me, and aesthetically displeasing in many cases. Not everybody can be allowed to wear these spandex.
Well, I think that
shouldn't there be a judging panel?
And the lycra is it's more of a privilege than a right. I think
this is an old expression, but yes. Some people are abusing the privilege. Is all I can say.
663-8492 is the number we're talking about. Cycling.
Doug Pittman is about to call
in.
in.
Excellent. I'm so happy to hear
He is
that.
our local deputy sheriff, correct?
He is our
sheriff's lieutenant.
And he's the man who's sort of in charge of the West Marin stuff and the different deputies that work out here. And I'm sure he will be calling shortly. And we'll put him in. But I did write a letter to the paper several years ago because, and I don't know if it was Doug that I interacted with or another person from the sheriff's office, because there was this question of crossing the double yellow. Which is not, okay, that's a big deal, right? It's illegal. So let's get him in here. Well, he's in there. I think he's on one.
You're listening to KWMR. This is Let's Talk About Cycling.
Hello.
And we encourage you to call if the line 663-8492 is busy.
Go through.
You can
try
663-8317 also works to discuss cycling, all aspects of cycling. I wish people would use it for commuting. That would be more interesting to me. As entertainment, I don't know. It's like,
right. But the idea of this concept of how the roads are striped. So the roads are striped with the double yellow in order for you driving at posted speed or just below, and me, another motorist, to be able to pass you on a dashed line going posted speeds. But when I ride my bike, I may be going 12 miles an hour, And you could probably pass me on some areas of double yellow, not all, with an adequate sightline because you're passing an object that is going much slower.
Let's ask the sheriff's department,
Yeah, let's
shall
ask
we?
him.
Hello there, you're on the air. What's your name? Is this Doug Pittman?
This is.
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
You hear me? Hey, Amanda, can you hear me?
Okay, we have
we
two
can hear
callers
you. We have
in.
two callers on the line. Who do we have here?
Doug, say your name.
Doug Pittman on one line.
All right.
Okay. We have to close off the other line for a moment. Hang on. Doug, are you there?
I am.
All right, what's up, Doug?
Okay, this is Lieutenant Doug Pittman of the Marin County Sheriff's Office.
I'll tell you what's up. I'm eavesdropping on your radio show like I often do. And obviously, I thought maybe this might be a conversation that you might have a question or two that I might be able to answer.
Excellent.
Wonderful. So we were just talking about the double yellow line, crossing the double yellow line. Always illegal?
Letter of the law, spirit of the law.
Yeah, well, and Amanda knows that we've had conversations about this in the past because that became a question early on when they came out with that new vehicle code section that said cars passing cyclists had to keep a minimum of 3-foot distance between the farthest point of the bicycle, or I should say the closest part of the bicycle, to the vehicle. And that law itself is just ridden with all types of problems. And specifically, who's judging what's 3 feet and what's not? And really, it's turning out to be more of a law that's used to possibly show someone being responsible for an accident more so than anything else. It's really an interesting law. When it came out, I had a lot of questions about it because people are like, hey, I have to go over the double yellow lines just to get by somebody. And Amanda's right on target. It's all about spirit of the law and letter of the law. And I like to think that we use a lot of spirit of the law, at least out here in West Marin County. Cyclists, motorcyclists, vehicle traffic, those are our biggest issues out here. And, we try to do what we can. I know even Highway Patrol is thinking of setting up some special operations this year because it's I won't say getting out of hand, but oh my gosh, everybody is coming to Marin County now to ride on our roadways.
Doug, what would you say about this Wednesday morning Divine Electric ride? When you get this big groups of people, there's also a ride that goes out of Fairfax on Saturday mornings, which has a pretty significant number of cyclists participating. Right. And they do ride in a big group. They ride basically in a peloton. Sometimes they're strung out, and that can be even more difficult to get around a big bunch of doubled up cyclists. And what is the Sheriff's Department's feeling on this sort of this gentleman from San Anselmo who said, oh, I'm riding as far to the right as practicable because I'm riding next to my friend who's also riding as far to the right as practicable, but I couldn't get any further right because I'd run him off the road.
Yeah, that's not going to hold up very well in traffic court.
But he has to get to traffic court.
Staying close to your friend is different than being close to the edge of the roadway. That's a whole different ballgame. And, really types of vehicle code sections that we use if we need to is impeding the flow of traffic. Now, everyone remember that cyclists are responsible to follow the same rules of the road as vehicle drivers of vehicles. And so if they're riding, as I heard you speak to earlier, 3, 4, 5, sometimes even more, abreast next to one another, and they're impeding the flow of traffic, that's a violation by itself. And they can actually be cited for it. It's a moving citation to get it. Another thing that people forget is that if 5 or more cars line up behind you, and because they're being stopped because you're impeding the flow, then you can be cited for that. So just as you would have to obey the law in a vehicle. Same thing with cyclists. I understand, and I know the craziness that goes with it. I used to ride a bike quite a bit. I don't do so much more anymore. And, we do what we can to work with these groups out here. But I would be fooling everyone if I said there doesn't seem to be a sense of entitlement by so many people out here. And again, not just cyclists.
No, but motorists as well.
Sure.
Yes. And patience, I always try to use as the key word that people need to find out here. I mean, people are coming out here in West Marin because it's beautiful out here. We have great roads. We have great scenery. I do look around when I'm on a bike as far as, what am I smelling and seeing and hearing and all those kind of things I do. So it's one of those things where everyone just needs to practice a little more patience. As a kid, I grew up, and the law was the same back then. Technically, you're not supposed to ride through like a stop sign. But I can't tell you how many stop signs I probably rode through. I wasn't even counting. I didn't care, And it's, again, these type of laws are really put in place to show cause or maybe it's better stated, to show blame. in an accident? Who was responsible?
Insurance.
Yeah, I think that if you get hit, then obviously the car came within closer than 3 feet. I mean, that's basically where I see that law.
Or you fell over.
Right. But there was, I think, a cyclist that did crash and was run over. I mean, there's other things that are risky out there, but
there was also one of the comments, and I've had this experience as well. One of the comments was driving down White Hill down into Fairfax. In my case, I passed a guy on a bike going up White Hill, going down the curvy part down into Fairfax. He passes me on the inside. On the right side.
On his bicycle.
On his bicycle. Because I'm slowing down for the curves and all that. He just comes whizzing by on the right side. Luckily, I saw him in my mirror. But foolish. Wow.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, when I ride down that hill, I get out in the middle of the lane. And I don't... I think it's more of an unsafe move to stay to the right and try to allow vehicles to pass you. You're going to be going as fast as you know, because this bicyclist passed you were in your car, that you just kind of got to get out there and take the lane until you get to the bottom. It's not that long.
Sometimes, because especially on the weekends, I mean, we're always guaranteed there's going to be a couple cyclists who fall and get injured and so forth. And I think Amanda mentioned earlier, most of those are solo bicycles getting involved. And actually, my thought is, after being out here for a number of years, is that people are pushing themselves to their limits, and they're forgetting about the unforeseen things, such as White Hill heading down into Fairfax. With all the slides that have been going on, there's a lot of gravel and things now that are falling out into the roadway, and I understand that. There's places where even where there's bike routes that people are supposed to stay, to the right of or inside the bike lane. I see that there's a need sometimes for their own protection, that they need to move out of that bike lane for the moment and before they can move back in.
Sure.
A lot of the roads out here are really hazardous.
But, I'd forgotten that was actually a bike lane. It was that if it's a separate bike lane, are they allowed to go faster than the cars in the car lane? If they're going downhill.
To explain that is, if there's a bike lane provided, you must stay in that bike lane. The second thing is.
But if he passed me on the inside, is that legal?
I mean, on the driver's side?
On the passenger side, going down White Hill.
Just like a vehicle, yes, a cyclist can pass you on the right-hand side, just like a vehicle can, if it's paved. But they can't go over that white line, that infamous fog line. If there's no line there whatsoever, and there's room for a vehicle to safely pass, there's the key word, safely pass on the inside, they can do that. But again, I know one of the tactics the Highway Patrol is thinking of doing this year, and they've already done it a couple times, is they're actually working LiDAR, which is a form of radar used for vehicles. And it's pinpoint accuracy, so they can actually see how fast the cyclist is coming down the hill. Just because you're a good rider and you've got a great $6,000 bike doesn't mean you can break the speed laws. You're not supposed to do that. And I know this sounds kind of harsh, but we're trying to do everything we can to reduce the number of. I'm telling you, we've had some pretty tragic accidents out here. And Amanda herself suffered a pretty serious one not too long ago, and she can speak firsthand to that. Now, I never questioned Amanda. She was just going crazy and beyond her limits, because I know Amanda's not that way.
It's here since then.
I really don't know what happened. I was told by somebody who lived in that area that they thought maybe I was hit and run. And I thought, whoa. I went from being like a dork to being a victim in a second, and I decided that I would rather be a dork and not think that somebody had actually hit me and left me on that road.
Right.
But I don't know.
Well, I was going to say, if you can just hang on with us for just a moment, Officer Pittman, I don't know if you have the time, but do a few announcements.
We do need to let people know they're listening to KWMR Point Reyes Station.
There we do. Can you hang on for a minute, Doug?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just that.
Then, let me just say, get out your plaid pants.
Speaking of style.
Get out your plaid pants. KWMR's 7th annual Daggy Golf Tournament is coming up on Friday, June 16th. Sunny weather, Texas Scramble, raffle prizes, fun, food, all benefiting KWMR. We welcome teams and individuals to register. That's Friday, June 16th. Registration forms are available in the events section of kwmr.org. And KWMR is supported by the Lucid Art Foundation, a nonprofit in Inverness offering an art review seminar with painter Jeremy Morgan in April and May. Their annual artist residency exhibit at Gallery Route 1 is April 7th through May 14th, with an opening reception on April 8th from 3 to 5. For information at 415-669-7585 or online at lucidart.org. And KWMR is also supported by Art Rogers Photography in Point Reyes Station, helping the coastal community tell stories since 1973 through portraits of families, babies, groups, marriages, milestones, agriculture, and landscapes, as well as through the Yesterday and Today series, which features family portraits captured over a span of time. More information at 415-663-8345 or at artrogers.com. And this is Let's Talk Call-In Radio. So
you're Paul Raffel. I'm Amanda Eichstead.
I'm Charles Schultz, and we do have another line open, 663-8317, but at the moment...
8492.
8492. I'm sorry, 663-8492, but we're on the line with Lieutenant Doug Pittman of the Marin County Sheriff's Department. I was just going to ask you, Lieutenant Pittman, have you seen big changes in the trends here? I mean, you talk about increases of traffic and tourism. Is that changing what's going on with the cyclists as well, or...
Absolutely, and I don't know if it's just because certain recreational magazines are promoting Marin so heavily, or what the case is. I mean, sometimes the economy itself drives people to do things that are not quite expensive. Of course, buying a $6,000 bike is quite a price tag to do it.
I'll tell you, I ran a bike shop, and when the economy took a dump, the people that couldn't afford the Porsche were more than happy to spend $4,000 on a bicycle because they were getting the best of the best at a time when that was what they could afford.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I can understand that. But yeah, so there has been a dramatic increase in the number of cyclists, motorcyclists, and tourism in general has jumped dramatically over the past 3 or 4 years out here. I know we did some surveys in regards to dealing with some issues down in the Muir Beach area with parking and the Point Reyes Park and so forth, and we were getting numbers from both the national parks and the state parks, and their numbers have jumped dramatically to the point where, and I'll go back 10 years, maybe there was 400,000 people that came during the course of the year, an estimated number, and now they're up to 1.4 million people who are coming out here and to enjoy what we all get the pleasure of seeing every day. And of course, that causes more traffic, more congestion on our little 2-lane roadways. It's really difficult.
Mm.
Well, and the fact of the matter is that most people work Monday through Friday. Not everybody, obviously, since there's a bunch of people on the Wednesday ride.
Apparently.
But that on the weekends, we do see a real uptick in... I live on a very busy corner for bicycling. And, I mean, even in Nicosia, they put up signs telling the cyclists to keep their voices down because when you're on a bike, you're yelling. I mean, I don't know how many times I can tell you that people we know are out riding their bikes because we know quite a few cyclists. We're out working in the yard. They're riding by. They're yelling. That's where Amanda and Ken live. I'm like, thanks for stopping in.
When we talk about the group think that takes place when you see these large group of cyclists riding together, and do they recognize the need that they really do need to get out of the way of the vehicles, especially if they're traveling slower than that of the vehicles or slower than the speed limit. And where I see that personally firsthand is if I drive into work in my personal truck. It's not a sheriff's truck. It's just my personal little gray truck. And all of a sudden I find myself getting caught behind all these people, and I feel that sense of frustration that everybody does. It's like, I need to get somewhere and all that kind of good stuff. But the moment I get in my company truck and start riding these roadways, and I pull up behind some of these groups, you'll see one or two of them turn around and look back, and you'll hear them, it's the sheriff, kind of thing. and hearing that, the entire group, for some, I don't know why, but miraculous reason, all of a sudden they find their way back.
It's amazing, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah, so I think,
we all need to get trucks like that.
Where can we get those decals?
No,
that's probably against the law.
Out at you guys and have you guys come out. No, so we have a summer coming up real quickly. Memorial Day's coming up. That's one of the biggest days of the year we have. Right. Aside from the other end of the season, which of course is Labor Day, and with all the festivals that take place, it's going to be chaotic. And I'll just mention this so people know that in communicating with the supervisor out here, he's taken some extra steps of meeting with local people in the community. As I am myself today, I'm heading down to Stinson Beach right now, And don't worry, I'm parked. I'm stopped on the side of the road. And, the famous why, in case anyone wants a stop sign, I'm here right now. And, you know, we are listening to the complaints, and it's difficult because, you know, we can't be everywhere.
Yeah.
You know? And so we really rely on people just using common sense and common courtesy to one another. And I know frustration kicks into play, and then, you know, as I always say, and I think I've already said it once today, patience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Sure.
is there really something so important that, you know, you're willing to get into conflict with?
Yeah,
And
because
then
it
we
can
all
be
know-
deadly, and you don't want to be the one to have harmed somebody or yourself in the in the process of doing that. Have these groups been cited by the sheriff's department, the Marin County Sheriff's?
Have you ever pulled over a cyclist? Is that the question?
No, I'm just like the bigger groups. Have there been have they been pulled over? I know when I lived down on the peninsula, I said earlier that there was one sort of notorious ride, and there were several run-ins with the law based on the fact that they didn't stop at stop signs. I mean, there aren't as many stop signs here is one of the issues. So,
Right. Well, as far as the citations issue, we've been involved with the Highway Patrol on some of these specific enforcement programs, and we're focusing more. There's 3 E's in the world of trying to control the situation. One's education, one is enforcement, and the other is engineering. And those are the 3 E's when it comes to any type of traffic issues. And so we're focusing more, not so much on the enforcement part. Most people anticipate that's what they're going to get when they get to meet one of us. It's more the educational part. And I have personally stopped a number of people on bikes and a number of people in groups of bikes. And I made it very clear to them the moment I got out trying to go, like, hey, I'm not going to cite anybody here, but do you understand what you're doing wrong here? And then we have that conversation. And sometimes people are just not fully informed as far as what their expectations are. Now, I understand I'm talking about cyclists at this point. Trust me, as we all know who live out here, we have issues with some of the drivers, the motorists out here. And, you know, bringing those 2 groups together isn't always a good combination because just as all personalities are different, so are these different groups of riders and motorists out here in Marin. We just have to try to keep the peace between them.
Yeah. Well,
thank
wonderful.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
Doug.
you, Doug.
That's great.
No, thank you, Amanda. I was tuning into my favorite station when I'm out here, and there you guys are, and I heard my name said in vain, so I thought maybe I better make myself available to you guys.
well, I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate that, Doug, and also for just being such a supporter of West Marin Community Radio.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And before I cut off completely here, save me a spot in that golf tournament.
All right, we will. Get out your plaid pants.
Oh,
Thank you, Doug.
stocking pants. Don't worry about that.
Please wear
All right,
pants.
you guys.
Please do wear
Have a
pants.
fantastic day. I'll see all of you very soon.
All right.
Drive
Thanks, Doug.
carefully
Take
out
care.
there.
Yeah. Well, I know there
and
was
of
a
course,
Oh.
sorry. But coming up, of course, in the next few months, we have the Marin Century ride in August. On August 5th, we have the Tour de Malte, which is when July.
Well, you know,
Is there Holstein 100 still happening? They
no,
killed that.
it's not. I'll tell you, the Holstein
And-
100 was one of the very first ones.
Right.
And what's happened over the years is these charity rides, as they call them, have grown to be so incredibly popular that it wasn't worth them taking the time from senior services with their small staff to do all of that work when
Right.
the numbers were dropping because there's so many options for people.
So many others.
Oh, so you mean they were losing riders?
Oh, yeah. If you look at a list of what rides, this last weekend on Saturday we were driving and there was just this massive ride coming through San Anselmo and Fairfax and over Whites Hill. And it was just people, hundreds of cyclists. And it was a charity ride of some kind. Couldn't figure out what it was. In fact, some of them had the little funky, helmet decorations and they had little ribbons and little funny fuzzy ear things, kind of goofy. That's a different style thing that I would be like, but it's their thing and they can do it. But I tried to go on my phone and figure out what ride it was. And there were so many rides that were planned to be going on in Marin, Sonoma, and San Francisco that I just gave up.
Well,
Ground zero for bike groups.
I used to collect with Paul Elmore the potatoes from Dave Little to bring down to the senior services. They give roast potatoes out to and of course, maybe I helped myself to a few of the potatoes, but I've disguised my Irish heritage with my last name, so Little had no idea those potatoes were going to me too.
And so what are the
I'm going to leave you guys because I'm going to go work on the bookkeeping housekeeping because I got to run things around here. But I appreciate you allowing me to come in, and I really appreciate Doug Pittman coming on, and I'll be listening. And if it gets really exciting, I'll call back.
Well, could you please disguise your voice and call back in as a new person? I mean,
just to say,
whip it up a little.
okay.
Yes.
I think there probably are people listening. I think there was some good information given out. I think the one thing that I want to say is that even from a national perspective of the encouragement of people riding bicycles for recreation, sport, commuting, fitness, that there are as many people within those groups that disagree with one another about, whether there should be more bike lanes, whether more people should ride on the roads, how these facilities, these engineering facilities should be done. There's like whether you should even have to stop at stop signs if you're on a bicycle, which is not the way the law is written. But that's I sent you that message that there is a movement afoot, in many places to try to change the rules for the bicyclists versus the motorists. And I don't really fall into that camp. I think, we have to work in a way that we can all understand what somebody might be doing, even though a lot of times people, motorists and pedestrians and bicyclists do unpredictable things, and that's when things get messed up.
We're human, after all.
Yeah, when that guy, when they all have computerized self-driving cars and every car is a computer that's being driven, then it will be much safer. And I'm waiting for the self-driving bicycle.
Self-driving bicycle. And, of course, Caltrans has plans afoot to put in rumble strips on the center line of Highway 1 between Stinson Beach and Tamales, I believe, and maybe farther. Rumble strips in the middle to prevent head-ons, but they're also widening the road by 4 feet at certain points to allow bicyclists to move over. Now, will these groups move over into those side lanes, into those pullouts? I have my doubts, but that is coming up there. I'm seeing teams of surveyors on Highway 1 every day now, so that's about to happen. I think they've already put in the rumble strips down Stinson Beach way.
Well, yeah, and also there's a meeting at the county today with certain local representatives of the villages of West Marin that's going to be meeting with Caltrans. I don't know if that's one of the issues they're going to deal with, but it's certainly there. There's a letter in the Point Reyes Light today from Bob Johnston. I think the letter is entitled "Rumble Strips Are Noisy." Thank you, Bob.
Thank you so much.
He has a degree in urban planning.
And the concern of the Marin County Bicycle Coalition, an organization that knew ahead of time before, for example, our local citizens group, they knew ahead of time about these rumble strips, and their concern is that people will not want to pull over the rumble strips to allow room for bikes anymore because of the noise. It will deter motorists from pulling around and giving space to bicyclists. So it may actually make it worse, which is why they're putting in pull-out lanes for cyclists at certain points. But
I gave, of all things, I gave Merrill a ride into town today, and he said there was some discussion of putting some kind of bike path through the ranch properties that would be dedicated to that. I don't think it's going to happen. But thank you, Merrill, for the thought.
And 2 years ago, George Clyde, when he was doing the news show on KWMR, he did a piece about the Tour de Malte back then. Or was it the Marin Century? Maybe it was the Marin Century, right? Anyway, he did a piece about that, and he had a suggestion that he uses for safely alerting cyclists to a vehicle's presence behind them. So let's just hear a piece of that.
I'm George Clyde, and I want to talk about bicyclists and cars on our West Marin roads. We have the most beautiful bicycling roads in the world, attracting thousands of lycra-clad bikers from all over. I know I am one of them, but when I'm driving, just like you, I find myself stuck behind bicyclists, trying to figure out a way to pass safely. What is most annoying are the bicyclists who ride 2 and 3 abreast. Quite often they refuse to break into a single line, inconsiderately holding up traffic. So here is my secret tip that'll solve the problem for you. When I approach the bicyclist and slow down, I don't give an angry honk or even a friendly toot, as they already know I'm there. Rather, I roll down my window and shout in a pleasant but strong voice, "Car back!" Properly said, both words should be clear, but the emphasis on back. Car back! It's amazing what happens next. Immediately the bicyclists meld into a single file along the right side of the road, allowing me to pass. If it's a big pack, people in the back automatically relay the order to the front. Car back, they repeat, until everybody is at the side of the road giving a clear passing lane. It's like Moses and the parting of the Red Sea. Why does this happen? Car back is what bikers shout to each other to warn of an overtaking car or truck that merits getting out of the way. Even when they realize the shout came from a car and not from another bicyclist, they assume the driver is a friendly road biker, one of their own, not just another hostile motorist. Often they give me a friendly wave as I pass. I always have a chuckle as I whiz by. You will too. Give it a try. Car back. This is George Clyde for the West Marin Report.
There you go. And George swears that this works. I saw him just the other day, and he said it still works. So he's still using this method to alert cyclists to his presence behind them. And that's what's so frustrating about these big groups who are in training or whatever. They know that you're there, and they do not care, and they will not pull over.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the population's increased so much too, right? I mean, there's just Petaluma alone is 20% larger in terms of population than when I moved here 7 years ago. Right. So it's just more of everything.
Well, and here's another example of between Marshall and Tamales. Going up that nice, up to Thistle Hill Ranch, that little rise up above, beyond Nick's Cove and up there before you drop down into Ocean's Roar. Oh. There's that hill. We followed them from Nick's Cove because, you cannot pass them. There was, a group of maybe 20, maybe 30 bikes laboring up this hill with a Mike's Bikes support car behind them. So even if you could pass the bike pack, you had to pass Mike's Bikes support car, whatever that meant. Why? Is it just a ride? Were they just out for recreation? Or were they professionals in training? Were they sponsored by Mike's Bikes in wherever they are, Mill Valley or San Rafael? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a certain... Oh, look at that.
Yes.
We have a caller.
We have a caller. Hello, caller. You're on the air. What's your name, please? And please, what's your language?
Hi, Paul. It's Heidi. My language is English.
English? Well, sort of.
Mostly.
Australian English, does that count?
Yes.
What's the scoop, Heidi?
I was just listening to your bike talk.
Yeah.
And I was just, I work for a bike company called Backroad. Mm-hmm. And just how we try and educate our groups around the world. We work in 50 different countries. Wow. And how we educate our groups to try and ride single file, and also with gaps in between. And then I ride out here as well, and I have problems with, riding single, like riding by myself and doing pretty well with the cars. Some people pass really close, and some people give you lots of space. And I always find that as a rider myself, when I'm around the corner and I know that there's a car behind me and I know it's safe in front of me, but they can't see, I wave them through.
Oh. See, that's
help
wonderful.
them because the roads are really windy, as we know. Mm-hmm. But pretty much all the things that you've been saying are really cool to hear about. And, it'd be nice if we had a bike path of some sort. And wouldn't have to deal with those large groups that really don't care about other people behind them. And there is no place to pass, especially
no,
smaller,
not on Highway 1. Yeah, right.
Or Marshall. Right. There's no breathing room.
Yeah. Well, that's all going to change, perhaps, in the next couple of years as Caltrans puts in some passing lanes for bikes, but not for cars. They're not going to make them wide enough for tourists to pull over, which is an unfortunate thing as far as I'm concerned. But well, that's wonderful that you're doing that, and thank you for doing it because my goodness, if everyone were as nice as that and as thoughtful, life would be so much better.
It would. I think the big cycling groups, they just don't care. They think, once you get everybody, any group, you get a group of men together, you get a group of women, they feel pretty strong and this is what we're doing and they, they sort of take over.
Yeah, which is a problem on hilly and windy roads with double yellow lines, I'd say.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Heidi, and so glad you're back in town for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Uh-oh.
I hope to see you sometime.
Yes, please.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Heidi.
Thank you, Heidi.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And we've been joined in studio by an expert on cycling issues on highways. Would you like to give us a final word here on cycling? Victor Reyes, please.
Keep it clean, please.
Final word. This is it.
This is it.
Is that final? Or
Almost, yes.
You've got 1 minute. Oh, and a call.
Ah, well,
That's
so
better.
much for Victor. This is a call-in show, after all. Hello,
Oh,
caller. You are on the air. What's your name, please?
Hello, hi there, Paul. This is Johnny Moore calling you from Reading.
Johnny.
Yeah, I love the show this morning. I've known Doug for many years. I left 7 years ago, so we don't know each other, but I appreciate that you're being there as well.
Oh, thank you.
One of the things I noticed I don't know if we covered earlier on, I've been on about 50 minutes, was like I rode my bike this morning, and the most important thing that I did is I put my lights on my bike.
Yeah. Yes.
Really, I got flashing lights, so...
Excellent.
I'm saying that people, whoever is listening, would probably want to make sure that that's the key, pivotal thing.
Right.
Because it catches drivers' eyes very easily.
Got to make yourself visible, especially through, like, Samuel Taylor Park, where, the shade and the light, and everyone's kind of blind and,
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I had. Thank you so much for a great show.
Good. Thank you, Johnny. Cheers.
Thank you, sir. Now, Victor, we do have 30 seconds. Bicyclists, yes or no? Should they be imprisoned?
baby in prison because he's riding a bike? Yes.
Yes.
Well, there it is. The final word from Victor Reyes.
Anything else to add?
I was just passing over here, that hill that is, after the cheese factory coming towards here, you get a hill, and then happens sometimes that you have one guy that feels like the leader of the group or the tough boyfriend, and then they don't get in one line. This guy is defending someone and gets in the middle of the lane. Mm-hmm. And you are like, nice to meet you. Because then you have to go almost
There
to
it
1
is.
mile per hour.
Everyone has had that experience.
Indeed. Is there a phenomenon of bicycling on the highways in Mexico that you're aware of?
No, not really. You get bicyclists, but there are people who really have to do bikes, so they don't have the outfit.
Transportation.
They are regular people.
They're going someplace.
Yeah, they are just, and some Latinos do that here, if you have noticed.
Right.
They sometimes don't even wear the helmet, but they have a baseball cap.
So cycling in America, a river flowing from no source to no ocean. Just to your moment of zen.
Well, this has been, thank you, Victor, for coming in. Thank you, Charles.
You're very welcome.
This has been Let's Talk. Call-in radio. KWMR does not take a stand on any of the issues discussed on Let's Talk. Opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts and callers and don't necessarily reflect the views of KWMR, its board of directors, underwriters, or members. Thank you very much to all our listeners and callers.